Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Colonati. Today I come to you with my fourth batch wrap-up of Arthur C. Clarke Award winners that I've read recently. This is probably the penultimate batch because I hope to get to the last 5 or 6 in January and February of 2018 and then be done with this project. So these are the ones that I DNF'd or finished reading in November and December of 2017. A bunch of these I've already talked about elsewhere or I have done separate reviews on, so I will try to keep this brief. The 3 that I have done separate reviews on are Distraction by Bruce Sterling, a 1990 cyberpunk novel that I thought was quite fun and enjoyable, though it failed at the ending a little bit. The Sea in Summer by George Turner, which was a fascinating tapestry novel about climate change written in the 1980s, and Unquenchable Fire by Rachel Pollack, which is a truly unusual and original fantasy novel that I liked despite how crazy it was sometimes. I've also talked about Fools by Pat Cadigan, which is another 1980s, 1990s cyberpunk novel. I talked about this in one of my A to Z readathon wrap-ups, so I won't repeat myself here, except to say that I didn't have much analysis of this one. I enjoyed it purely for what it was, about mind playing and implanting personalities in people's heads and the personalities taking over and becoming real people. It was really intense, interesting to figure out what was going on with all of the identities springing up and dying off in the story. I still am not sure who was real and who was not, and even what real means in it. So the other ones I have to talk about, I DNF'd Vurt by Jeff Ryman. Unfortunately, this one I could have finished reading. It was also kind of a cyberpunk novel, but very heavy on drug use. In fact, that's the title of the book. Vurt is basically like this virtual reality drug that all the main characters are addicted to. There's like this Scooby gang of people. They're all Vurt addicts. They're all looking for their next hit. One of them has lost his sister in the virtual reality drug world, and they're trying to get her out. This book basically had all the things that I don't enjoy reading, and so I had to stop reading it, even though it was very quick. I got like a third of the way through it in a single day and then said I can't do this to myself. I don't like heavy drug use, and the whole book is about drugs, drug use, the experience of being on drugs, and addicts looking for their next fix. I also don't like incest, and the main character of this is having sex with his sister. He's in love with his sister, and I got to that point when it's revealed and there's the scene of them having sex for the first time, and I just said no. This is the 3rd book I've DNF'd for my Clarke Award project. It is also the 3rd book I've DNF'd because of incest or taboo sexual practices, which makes me say, well, what is up with you, Clarke Awards? Why is this a trend? 3 for 3 on squeaky taboo sexual practices here. Can we just not? But at this point, I'm very clear on what I do not like and what I will not make myself read. This means that the only book I have to talk about at any length here is Air by Jeff Ryman. I really loved the ideas in this book. I was all ready to give it a very high rating, and then there's this completely ridiculous, dumb storyline thing at the end that yanked it down to about 3 stars for me. This is science fictional in many ways, but it also borders on the fantastical, which could be a real detriment to some people coming to this looking for a real science fiction story about the implications of technology, because that's what it's about. This is about how a radical new technology can be introduced into the world, destroy old traditional ways of living, and replace it with a completely new world that many people don't know how to function in, and therefore they will die if they can't survive in it. So it is set in this very small, poor village in a nation that's kind of a stand-in for a place like Tibet. It clearly borders on China, but it has a fictional name and it's a bit vague about where it actually is. And this is the last village where this technology called Air is introduced. They're doing a nationwide or possibly worldwide test of Air. It's basically internet in your head. And the test goes disastrously wrong. People in the village die, and the main character, who has set herself up with a little business as being the fashion consultant in the village, has an accident where she is inside the head of another woman when the woman dies. May has this woman in her head all the time. It's like two personalities trying to control the same body in many ways. May realizes that Air is going to come back after the test. They're going to bring it back at some point, and she sees how this will change the world she lives in and how it could impact the village. And so she attempts to learn about Air, basically learn about the internet, how to make websites and how to use it and everything, so she can teach the people in her village and help them survive in the new world. Of course, there are impediments to this. May very much acts outside of the gender norms expected for a woman in this traditional society. What's expected of a woman, but also of a wife. She has an affair, she gets pregnant, she's trying to run her own business, she's making money decisions when the men in the village don't really think women should be doing that. And yet, as the wild woman, as the very headstrong, fierce woman, she's like the only person who can really force through this change and really help people and warn them and handhold them. I really liked this depiction of the village and May as a person. There's a lot going on. In fact, I think the story could have reined itself in a bit more. It keeps going off on these tangents and side stories and little things popping up with all these interactions in the village. And yet, even though some of those things seemed sort of just dropped and never concluded, there's this richness to the life in this village, this network of people, of friends and family and extended family and politicians and the religious people and everything. It was very complex and rewarding because of that. And I think what it's saying about the introduction of technology and how ways of life change is very true and very interesting. The thing that I did not like about this is that there's this pregnancy storyline and it's completely dumb. Basically, May gets pregnant in her stomach, except that the way this is explained I think is perfectly impossible. It's because the story actually tells you how she got pregnant. If it had just skipped over that, it wouldn't have been a problem. But the book explicitly says that May gets pregnant because she performs oral sex on her lover and she swallows both her menstrual blood and his semen, and that she is now pregnant with a fetus growing inside of her stomach. Not like in the abdominal wall, but like actually inside the stomach, bathed in stomach acids. This is impossible. I mean, number one, menstrual blood is not fertilizable eggs. That's impossible. This is just an atrocious biological inaccuracy. And then there's this whole thing about how she won't give up the baby, she wants to bring it to term, but it's basically this stunted, deformed thing in her stomach because it's being eroded by stomach acid, and then she has to give birth through her mouth. This is ridiculous. And I think I'm upset about it because it could have actually been a real thing. Ectopic and abdominal pregnancies are a real thing when a fertilized egg actually lodges in a different part of your body outside of the uterus. And yes, they are dangerous and they can cause death and they can result in deformed babies, and they can, in some miraculous cases, be carried to full term. So there's this whole real thing that could have been put in the story, but the way that it's talked about is so grossly inaccurate and stupid. Just no. I'm more upset about it now that I think about it. Anyway, I was very surprised by the ideas. I think it's worth reading because of that, but I cannot for the life of me figure out how some of this inaccurate stuff got left in after editing. Like, just, it could have been so easily fixed. And that is it for this batch wrap up. There were some really great ones in this batch, especially the ones I did separate reviews on. I really enjoyed those. So if you've read any of these, you want to talk about them, please leave me a comment down below. If you have any thoughts on Jeff Ryman's work as well, because I am so new to it. This is the only thing I've read by him successfully so far. I would like to know more. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. And until then, bye.